Oh God. This episode is gonna get a little deep, but not too deep. Hello and welcome back in. I'm going to be talking about dating a gaslighting narcissist and mental abuse. And if you are someone who has suffered from mental abuse or is currently suffering from mental abuse, I have some links below that can be really helpful for you during or after. And if there is anything I can say, do yourself a favor and try and find help, because there are many options and there are people out there who care about you. So let's jump right in. Just briefly, really quick, this is one of my favorite sets and it's very fitting for this episode. It is the Comfort brand and they are designed for your anxiety, which is perfect. They're very plushy, like a pillow, and I'm someone who's dealt with anxiety for a really long time, and if you are someone who does as well, these are just like a comforting little hug and just kind of the perfect thing to be wearing when you're feeling anxious. This is the time of year that I absolutely love, and this year I'm actually really getting to enjoy it so much more than I was last year, because last year I was still just surviving and taking day by day and really like hour by hour, because coming out of a mentally abusive relationship with a narcissist who was gaslighting me was extremely difficult. And we're going to jump into that subject and talk about some of the symptoms that did happen for me and that are known to happen afterwards. So this is my second episode and I'm definitely excited for this journey and everything that I hope to share to you guys and to connect on these levels. I really hope that it's something that can be helpful for you. It can be healing together. Today's subject, I will be talking about dating a narcissist who used gaslighting as a form of mental abuse. And gaslighting in its root is a form of manipulation that has you lose your sense of reality and sense of confidence in oneself. And for me, this experience was one of the scariest experiences I've had, and it was just filled with so many other toxic things. But coming out of it, I literally felt like I was losing touch with reality, and everything just felt so surreal around me. I was anxious 24/7, and I'm so grateful to be where I am today, to be able to even talk to you about this subject, because it has taken me some time and a lot of work. In the relationship, there are many things that I just was blinded to seeing, because that's the whole form of manipulation. Throughout the relationship, they wear you down and they slowly chip away at your self-confidence and your confidence in your own memories. These are 5 signs of gaslighting in a relationship. Number 1 is doubting self and one's own memories. Constantly questioning of self and memories, feeling unsure of the reality you're in, which can be signs and things like literally feeling like you're going insane and just having this state of confusion of reality. The next, number 2, is isolation and control. Isolating you from friends and family and loved ones, and control of social interactions. This can even stem into even more control of your phone and activities you're doing, and maybe even what you do for work to what you do normally for fun yourself. Number 3 is denial despite proof, which is denying things that have evidence, that you maybe actually had evidence of, and they're denying that. Undermining your sense of reality. Number 4 is exhaustion and manipulation. Pushing you to exhaustion can show up in various different ways, by putting expectations on you that you need to be working on yourself. Like for me, for example, he would say things like, I know it's not your fault. I can't be mad at you because you're a terrible communicator and you're not good at communicating. So that pushed me to spend extra time studying and learning how to communicate. So the manipulation kind of comes around in so many different forms. It can be things like I just said, saying things in a way that manipulates you into doing something by saying, oh, I know it's not your fault, but exhaustion can be just because you're fighting constantly. And for me, he would make these comments about my cleanliness, which pushed me to wake up super early in the morning. I'd be waking up at like 5 in the morning and studying and writing and then making sure I got all the cleaning done before we could do anything and just relax and hang out. And hanging out and when we got to just have fun or relax was all controlled by him. He would kind of implement when it was okay to drink and it was okay to do these things. Number 5 is a general manipulation, and that is kind of where the mind control comes into play. Is they will find many various ways of manipulating you into believing what they want you to believe is the truth. And so for me, this showed up in various different ways, as far as making comments and like stating things like they're true. For example, he would state things that were faults of mine or personality traits of mine that he wanted me to believe were true, and kind of and that manipulation comes in with wanting them to bring you down, bring your self-esteem down more and more, so they kind of gain that more control over you. So once you believe you are less than and smaller than them, and that's where also someone a lot of times can end up being a narcissist who is going to use gaslighting, mental abuse, and tactics, because they can have their entitlement and their insecurities potentially and things that make them want to bring people lower than them. Their manipulation will transfer over to other people. So for example, when we would be in social settings and I would be wanting to prove that there was something wrong, he's already manipulating everyone around him, his friends, everything that a narcissist does. And someone that is also gaslighting is very tactical. They will be always thinking about what they're saying. For example, there was a time when I had him visit my family, and when we were in just a room with just us, he was saying how it's so weird. It's hard to explain. Because I kind of have blocked out detailed memories of exactly what he said. But so when we were in a closed room, he was saying how he pretty much was just methodically thinking about everything he was saying. Like he was only saying things he wanted to present and putting on a facade and a show for my family. Red flags. Red flags alert. Moving on into the after effects and symptoms that can show up long term. The common symptoms are going to be anxiety, depression, PTSD, negative impact on self-esteem, self-doubt, and insecurity, which all of those are things I definitely experienced, and form of manipulation and mind control that makes you lose a sense of reality. And so you can feel like you're going insane during the relationship. Like many days did I question, like, am I going crazy? Like, am I literally losing my mind? Because they will do things like maybe even moving something and then blaming you that it's not where it was. And you're just questioning yourself, like, No, I knew I put that there. But they do this in small ways over time, just building and building that control and manipulation and making you lose that sense of like confidence in your own memories and trust and abilities of what you're doing. So I'm going to go into some red flags that are things that you can look for and that were things that were red flags in my relationship that I was able to see afterwards and that I just couldn't see when I was in the situation, because that is one of the most difficult things about gaslighting, is because when you're in the situation it can be so hard to see these red flags because you are literally being in this state of mind control. Like this person is controlling your mind and starting to take over your life. Some of these red flags were criticizing my communication skills, which I did kind of mention earlier. He would say things like, I know this isn't your fault because you're a bad communicator. There was a time where he kind of gave me like a pep talk before we went into this, and I don't really remember the details of exactly what he said, but we were going to go and meet one of his good friends and do this kind of double date thing. It was like his good friend and his girlfriend, which today I'm actually pretty surprised to say this, but actually very happy to say me and her have become really good friends, and I don't really think they really socialize with him anymore. Me and her are able to have a really good friendship with him not ever coming up into the picture, because she's heard my story and really understands that he was a abuser and he is not a good person. So, but to get back into that, so we go on this little double date. We're like hanging out in the movie theater at my old apartments where he also lived. That's where we met. We were just chatting and what I thought was a good time. And me and her have since talked about it afterwards. She was just like, that's fucking bullshit, because realistically, she's like, I had a good time. We were talking, like, I didn't think anything of it. After we hung out with him, what he said to me was, you know, you talked way too much. Like, didn't you see how she was becoming so disinterested? She didn't really want to talk to you because you talk too much. You have to ask questions. You have to ask open-ended questions. You can't talk too much. Otherwise, you're just going to bore the person you're talking to and meeting, and you'll have no friends. Like, if you want to make friends, you have to learn how to communicate properly. A red flag! Ding, ding, ding! Another thing is shifting the blame from the problems. And I just know there were so many red flags and things that I could think of that I'm not going to necessarily go into too in depth, but we had many scary fights. Like, I would try and like even record them, and when I would like put the like phone on recording, he would just find this way to like literally make sure nothing was showing up, or like he would just like reverse it, and it was horrible. So there was also the obsessive cleaning expectations. When I met this boy, I will say, his bedroom was a disaster. His bathroom was disgusting. Like, I can't even believe that I cleaned it for him. Like, I forgive myself for this though. Like, that is something that I just want to put in there that's a key, is after leaving a relationship like this, you have to forgive yourself and you have to work on forgiveness, because that person's never going to come and apologize to you. Like, especially a narcissist that has been gaslighting. No. They're going to walk away thinking it was all your fault and that they are still the kings somehow. Once he started to follow me down here, like, he pretty much became so controlling, he needed to always be around, so he pretty much moved in with me. So once he like moved down here and lived with me, he would set such high expectations for how clean the place would be. He would nitpick me, and like if I would like leave little things out, like if there was like a tiny piece of trash that didn't end up in the trash or was like on the counter, he would drop comments like this, like that I don't want to be living with someone who's going to live like a frat boy. And when you really think about that, like, he's the one who was living like a frat boy. Like, I've always had good cleaning tendencies. Like, every so often, yes, like maybe I don't get this done right away. That's normal. Another red flag was invasion of privacy and my phone. And that is where he started to take control from the very beginning. Our relationship started like a freaking hurricane, hellstorm. My life was already very toxic. I had different relationships. I used to always be someone who said I could only be in like an open relationship because I had a quote unquote sugar daddy, which that little snippet will be another episode that we will talk about. And so he knew these things about me. I was a bikini barista. And so when we were first starting to date, he would do this back and forth thing. Like, I don't know if I could date a barista. Like, we can be open. There would be like this night, he said, like, we can be open. And then later down in the relationship, he tried, and this was where the manipulation and confusion was intacted, was when he would be going through my phone and finding things and like diving in to that like kind of beginning part of our relationship. He said like I was cheating on him, but we weren't together in the beginning. So he was already setting all this confusion for me. And in the beginning, when he started going through my phone and kind of doing this whole back and forth, he pretty much like started taking full control of my life by saying like I can't date a barista. And so there was a night where we fought like crazy and I decided I'm gonna quit my job. And then another time he would like shame me for my OnlyFans and like having my Instagram, and just kind of like with tactics pretty much shaming me into like believing that I needed to do these things. So I deleted my Instagram, I deleted my OnlyFans, and out of all of those things, like I don't regret any of it because this was kind of what I was talking about in my first episode. The job that I had was creating so much toxicity in my life and was just creating more and more trauma. Like, it was not for me. And it took a really long time for me to figure out that I needed out of that place. I wish I could have done it on my own, but that's one thing I thank him for, was like, I quit that job finally and I got out of there. But otherwise, like, I got nothing to thank him for. One of the other manipulative tactics he did was, in that beginning of our relationship, we were so like on and off and like nothing was for certain. And there was this time that I was over at my friend's house. He calls me up and he's like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "I'm at my friend's house." And he's like, "I'm outside your house." Like, okay. And he's like, "Where are you? Send me the address now. Like, I'm coming." And so he shows up to my friend's house and literally comes in and he says, "We're breaking up. You cheated on me and we are breaking up. Like, I talked to my friends and I don't need to be with someone like you knowing that this happened." And then has the audacity and like, this was one of those manipulative tactics, was he just pretty much invites himself in to stay for quite some time, and you know, doing drugs and all of that. He ends up pretty much starting to befriend my friend, and I'm sitting over there like crying, just not saying a word. And he's just like, he brings out his like cocky, happy demeanor. Like, after he broke up with me, he's all good. So he's all golden. He's the golden boy. And after that, we leave, and he ends out saying like, "Can you give me a ride home?" But then says like, "Actually, I'm coming home with you." And then like the next day, like, he's like, actually we're not broken up. Like, he just pretty much pretended like that didn't happen. The next day he goes into pretty much stating like rules to the relationship for it to keep going. And in that whole thing, he made me believe that like I was losing something and I had done something wrong. So I needed to do something to prove myself to be with him, when it definitely was all the other way around. Now, moving into the next segment is healing. Now, I want to emphasize that healing is a process and can vary in duration for different people and different circumstances. For some steps that I have to heal, I would say it takes time and mental effort. And time is not going to heal it. Trauma resides in the body, so you also have to put in the work to heal. But in the beginning, just give yourself time and grace. Do the things that make you feel safe and comfortable. For me, this was a lot of just being at home and watching movies that made me feel good. I will say all of the Hayao Miyazaki films got me through some tough times. Like, my favorites are Howl's Moving Castle, Kiki's Delivery Service, and Ponyo. They all have great soundtracks. Spirited Away, they're all really good ones. Like, the music and their soundtracks are very soothing and relaxing. They worked great for me. Find what works best for you. The next would be seeking support from family, friends, loved ones, and definitely therapy if you can. I will be having links below for 2 therapists that I know of. The first one was one that I had seen, and they are local to Washington. And then the other one is, she is someone who works from Oregon and Washington. So if you are from either of those states, you can seek help from her. She is amazing, and I only recently started working with her. She specializes in sexual trauma and trauma work. And so I highly recommend finding someone who is in the specialty of trauma and whatever you're working towards. May it be sexual or abuse, whatever. But if you can't, I also put below betterhelp.com, because they are one of the best ones who have started to work on making therapy available for everyone. And I know that a lot of times it can't be available for everyone, but if you can, it can be so helpful because they can be a guide for you. Sometimes just talking your therapy out or just journaling is not going to resolve it. Journaling can be a really good tactic, but it's not releasing it from your subconscious. Getting to actually vocalize it is releasing it from the body. Another thing is going to be rebuilding your confidence. And that can be through positive interactions with people that you know and that know you. For me, like, I was able to really rely on my family and people who knew me very well. I spent a lot of time on FaceTime with my dad. I would call my mom when I needed. And I had another friend that I no longer talk to, but she was very supportive. And she is actually the person I have to thank for being able to see all the red flags of the gaslighting. And that is a big reason why I wanted to do this video, is I feel like so many people aren't really able to see the signs and be able to do something for someone if they're not being able to do anything for themselves, like I was. Because mental abuse and gaslighting can be so hard to spot when you are in the relationship. So another key thing is, for me, my abuse happened in my house. And so if you are able to relocate from the location that the abuse mostly happened, because PTSD is triggered by any little thing. It could be smell, sight, hearing. All of those things can trigger your PTSD and anxiety. So for me, I spent a lot of my time trying to heal while I was up here, and it was brutal. Anxiety is very hard on the body, and being in a constant state of anxiety, I just wasn't being able to heal. So for me, once I went down to Oregon and stayed with my dad and got to spend time with one of my closest childhood friends, once I got to go spend time with people who knew me really well and were able to remind me of who I am and that self that I lost, that's when the healing really, really started. I spent a whole 3 months down in my hometown and getting to spend time with my good friend. Like, we grew up together and we've had our times on and off, but we were besties before I moved up here, and then we kind of reconnected in the summer. But she really was a huge part in my healing process. She reminded me of just who I was when I was young and then who I was before I moved up here, because even before meeting him, I had lost so much sense of my true self, and that's what made it almost easier for me to end up in such an extreme state of the gaslighting. But I thank her and I'm so grateful for her. And if you have friends and family that you can rely on, definitely use those people. And if you don't, like I said, I have links below. Just use what you can. And I hope this video can be helpful for you. So I really hope this video can be helpful for you, or if you can share it to someone who maybe might need this or could find some help watching this video. I really appreciate you for watching this video, and if you are able to, give it a thumbs up. That's really helpful for me, and go ahead and subscribe because I will be going into so much more, and I really hope this can be helpful for you or your friends. So again, this was going through the signs of gaslighting, the symptoms of it, and the healing process that you can find. I really hope this can be helpful for you. And I did put some helpful links below. If you are someone who is dealing with abuse or know someone who is dealing with abuse, please do not hesitate to help them if you do see something, because sometimes they may not be able to help themselves. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope this was something that could be helpful for you or someone else. So I do invite you to comment and discuss maybe some other things that maybe you have experienced yourself or that was helpful from the video for you. And I also want to remind you that you are not alone and that healing is possible. So I hope you have a really good day, and thank you so much for watching.